This 67 Fastback used to look like this. Now almost $50,000 later, it looks like this. Now the Fastback is my dream car. And I never really thought I could get that. You see, this car right here, it started as a Mustang Coupe because the Coupe was the car I could actually afford. I only paid $5,900 for the Coupe. Now mind you, that was a running and almost driving condition. Okay, so ask me that question that you always want to ask. Why didn't I just buy a Fastback? And the answer is simple. Fastback shells started at $20,000 to $25,000 for a rusted out shell, and you would have to replace all of the metal regardless. I mean, yeah, you get the VIN identity of a Fastback, but that's it. If you replace all of the metal on it regardless, then it's the same thing I'm doing here, except it doesn't have a Fastback VIN, it has a Coupe VIN. So at that point, for a difference of $15,000, I wasn't gonna buy a Fastback shell. Now, I've spent $48,000 on this car so far. And no, that isn't just for the car you see in front of me. That's for thousands of dollars of parts in the basement. That's for the drivetrain, the engine, the brakes. But there hasn't been one point in this build that I've had $48,000 just to drop on a Fastback. You see, all of the parts that I got, I've accumulated over 2 years. And for some reason, something the enthusiast can't comprehend, if I would have just bought a Fastback, I would have never learned as much as I did. The knowledge that I've gained with engines, with metalworking, with welding is invaluable. And the thing I'm most excited for is when I'm at a stoplight in this car when it's complete, and the guy next to me says, "Hey son, nice car. What, did your dad buy that for you?" And then I'll just laugh because I built this car piece by piece. So me and you today, we're gonna fix this rear tail pan here. I'm so lucky that Mr. Gone in 60 reached out to give me some measurements. And I appreciate all advice. I know sometimes advice comes off as mean from people, but I take it seriously from people who have the experience. Like Mr. Gone in 60 has done thousands of these different ways, and he gave me some great advice how to do this. And he said I need from here to here to be 16 inches. And I believe that's what's causing this gap in the rear tail pan here with the extensions. Now see, this is the end cap right here, and it just bolts on, but it never fits good, just like anything on this car. As you can see, there's a gap up here, and then look how big this gap. That's like almost half my thumb right there. This gap is a no-no. It's not supposed to be here. So Mr. Gone in 60 sent me a whole 5-minute video, edited up and everything, to basically show me how to fix this. Now I originally wanted to cut a piece right here, which I was skeptical to do because it just doesn't seem right at all. But he said that the dimension from here to here is not right. He said it needed to be 16 from the end here, extending down to here. Now I'm at like 15 3/4, and he said it can actually go a little past 16 to a 16 1/4. Now that could explain my reason on why I have such big gap between the quarter and the end cap. So I'm gonna take everything apart and try to cut and trim and make this come back more, and hopefully it works.
Now, just saying that I need to bring this out about 1/4 of an inch is easy, but to actually do it without affecting everything else is no easy challenge. So I undid a few self-tappers and removed the corner pieces.
We got both of our corner pieces removed,
followed by the rear tail pan so we can make some adjustments. Now, vice grips allow me to get a hold of the metal and bend it outwards to create more space to hopefully close that gap. This quarter panel should not be sitting below the rear brace. It should be about even, so I'm actually gonna get a jack and jack this side of the quarter panel up till I make that piece even.
By the way, it's amazing how much American quality of vice grips is better than Harbor Freight. Like, these don't bend, and they just feel so much better.
And it's true, the difference between a snap-on tool and a Harbor Freight tool, you can notice a difference. But in my budget, I only can afford Harbor Freight tools. And just like the other side, I'm using those same vice grips to bend this metal back outward to hopefully create more of a gap on the driver's side. Then I brought back the rear tail pan to test fit.
Before I actually trim this off, I'm just gonna try bending it back to make some room because I just don't want to cut it in case I need it. So I'm gonna bend it back before I cut it and then test fit it.
Now, one thing Mr. Gone in 60 told me is that I'm gonna have to trim this edge on the rear tail pan to make it fit, but I just wanted to try bending it just to allow it to move a little more in case I didn't actually need to cut it. Now, this is the original video that Flint from Mr. Gone in 60 sent me, and he helped so much.
Make sure your quarter panel is not riding up on the edge of this taillight panel right here.
So now let's try fitting this. Again.
So after this piece is clamped back on, I'm gonna test that end cap again.
Let's see if this fits remotely any better.
And surprisingly, I noticed a difference.
This isn't fully on, but you can see that gap did actually close a little bit, and that's just with a little bit of movement. I didn't bend that metal much at all, and I still haven't even made my cuts. So once I find where it's like hugging and touching a little more, I can probably trim it and make it even closer. Now the other side was the really bad side, so let's see how that one fits.
After quickly seeing the driver's side of this car, I instantly found a spot that I could improve.
Definitely better, but I see already where I can cut and make improvements and where it's getting caught up. But let me just try bending it out of the way first just to make sure.
Now I ultimately decided to cut a little relief in the metal of the quarter so it would stop bubbling up every time I try to move it outwards. I had a comment asking me, am I scared of cutting so much metal and messing something up? But in a case like this, not really at all, because metal can always be fixed and put back and welded, and this was never going to be seen. I moved on to cutting off some pieces of the rear tailpan just so it would stop getting held up just because the lip was a little too long.
Alright, so I made a relief cut here. I made a relief cut here, and now let's put this on and see if we can manipulate it a little more.
Relief cuts in metal help so much to remove unwanted tension, and in this case, let me show you how it helped.
Now since there's this cut in it, I could freely bend it without having to warp this side. I'm just going to go extra over because I can always put it back, but I just want to get it to the point where it fits. So much better. Is it perfect yet? Absolutely freaking not. But we definitely closed up that gap a lot without having to cut any part from here, which is good because that's a lot of extra work and it probably would cause problems somewhere else. So now I'm going to measure this original measurement from this top to this bottom and kind of see where we're sitting and if we're close to that 16 inches.
Wow, that is so much closer than before. We're only about a 16th off and we have more room to go. Now, if there's one thing to take from building a car, you need patience. You want to know why? Because you're going to be taking stuff on and off over 100 times just to get it fit remotely close, and then you'll have to do that again. Now here, I tried a new trick where I utilized a Sharpie and I tried to mark where it was perfect when it was sitting off the car. And I want to put it back on the car to see how far away my lines were from the ones I drew when it was off the car. Now, I had a suspicion something was up that I couldn't figure out because when you do something so many times and you can't get it right, then chances are something's a little bit off.
So I just got stuck working on this because I got it close, but it wasn't perfect and something was off. And then I called Flint from Mr. Gone in 60, and when I say this man helped me so much, it's insane. He showed me things I wasn't even thinking about. For example, this piece right here, the back side of this tailpan has to be sitting flush with the trunk floor. And you guys can see that mine is not sitting flush. It needs to be pushed down a little bit. Now another problem that I'm encountering is getting this piece to sit perfect on here. It's not happening. It's either like this and there's a big gap right here, or it's flat here and there's a big gap down here. And I was just thinking that this was casted wrong because everyone says, you know, the parts are wrong. And although they are bad, he told me that something was in the way, and I was like, how? And something's in the way. So I looked in here and saw that this was in the way, and then he told me that this is sticking out and you have to hammer this in because it has to be flat. Needless to say, I have a lot of work that I have to do now that I've learned from him, and God bless that man. He is a gift to the car community, to say the least. Check out his videos in the description. So with that being said, right now I'm gonna try to hammer this down and try to make this fit flush to this. Now, just from fiddling with this piece, trying to get it in here, you can actually see this little paint mark that the paint got scuffed off from the metal hitting it. So now I just trace back to where that is down here. I'm gonna bend it out the way and see if I can make it fit flush then. So let's see if I can just bend it back just a little bit. Now the next area of contact is right here. You can see how there's this gap, right? Well, right there it's touching, so I'm just gonna hammer this spot down a little bit more.
Now when you're hammering metal, you really don't know how much you've moved it until you have a bunch of hits, because one alone doesn't do anything, but after you have 10 to 20 to 30, you can really see it start to move. And I was just bringing the end cap on here to let me see where it was still touching and fix it.
So I just put that piece back on and you guys can already see how much better it's fitting. Now something is still holding it up down here, but the gap's closed up here, it's even.
And we just gotta find what specifically is making it get caught in here, and it might be this piece right there.
This just goes to show, when you have good advice from someone and you practice what they say and just, you know, take that opportunity to learn, you can fix things without ruining it like I usually do. Guys, it is like Christmas came early. Look at how perfect this is. Mind you, this is not bolted in, okay, which would make it even tighter. But look, we just closed that gap. Now we just gotta do some fine tuning and do that to the other side. But look, it's perfect. Now I'm just gonna put the nuts back on the back side of this extension just to tighten it up and see how it actually is fitting with tension.
I put the nuts on the back of the end caps just to press it tight to see if anything would change once it was tight, because I didn't want that to happen later on.
Look at this. With tension, with the bolts holding it on, like, it is so almost perfect. Like, it's a little raised here, but this can be definitely knocked down or bent a little bit. And then, I mean, the trunk isn't even on right, but it's already, with a little adjustment, I'm sure I can make it fit so flat. Like, it's so much better already. It's insane. When we compare that side to this side, you guys can see, this is where I was before. Look how bad this fit. Look how off. Yeah, so definitely got some work to do here.
This passenger side must have taken 10 minutes max, because I actually knew what I was doing this time, and it was actually easy.
So that's 3 things correct out of 4. We got this correct on this side, the gap. We got the quarter extension correct. We got this end cap correct, and now we got to get this gap correct.
Essentially, I just have to repeat everything I did on the driver's side to this passenger side. And although I didn't know what I was doing this time to fix that gap, this side did fight a little more and didn't want to go into place. So I had to keep adjusting it over and over and using self-tappers. I have so many self-tapper screws in this car, it's ridiculous, but they'll all be filled eventually.
There she is, guys.
So we got these gaps looking absolutely flawless. It's not supposed to be exactly touching, but it's supposed to be close. To me, that is not touching, but close, and it was way better than before.
It's still tight here, and it's still tight here. And that's because since I took these corner pieces out, our 53 inches from last video that this is supposed to be is now 52 and like 7/8. So it's a little tight. So we're gonna use that spreader, get it back wide, and then we're gonna place these corner pieces back on right here, and that will actually hold the distance that we need, that 53 inches. Last video, my dad bought me a porta power, and we're gonna have to use that again to widen this and spread it out. But just for proof, right now from corner to corner, 52 3/4.
The porta power is just basically a big hydraulic that allows you to spread something in small increments and holds the tension for you.
Now, Hunter from Lost Socket Garage told me that I can trim this lip right here because instead of trying to force another one over it, it would close way easier. So I'm gonna cut this lip right here.
I love learning little life hacks like this, like cutting the lip so it's easier to fold over after I put it on the car, because when I actually did it and folded it over, it literally took 2 seconds, whereas before it was like 40 minutes. Now I went back to the vice grips in order to squeeze this metal because they were small enough where it wouldn't hurt anything and strong enough where they could actually move it. Also, if you notice that big hydraulic is still in the car, we can't take that off until we get these corners in because they hold the tension and they will keep the 53 inches.
Okay, so right now is the moment of truth. We spreaded it to the 53 inches. 53 1/16. So it's just a little bit past, because I imagine that when this releases, even though this is tight on here, it'll still contract a little bit. But I'm hoping it stays at 53, the measurement that we need. So when I release this, we're probably gonna hear a bunch of creaking, but hopefully it doesn't shrink too much. Okay? Now it did move, we'll see how much.
This distance has to be correct.
Let's go, baby! Right at 53. Now I'll double check before I get too excited. 53 on the dot.
Now that is huge news that that measurement is perfect, because that means we can start rolling on this car and get everything welded. But just because it all fits perfectly right now doesn't mean I can just go and weld it in. You see, all of this metal has to be tapped down nice and flush to the tail pan. If I were just to weld it in messy how it is now, there would be huge gaps that water can seep through, so we kind of have to close all of these gaps as tight as possible, and eventually seam sealer will go over all of this, but we have to get the metal right.
So I think the next step in the welding process is putting on this. Now, if you're not familiar with what this piece is, it's basically like
the bracket that holds the lock mechanism so the trunk can latch shut. It goes in here and it gets tucked in the welding process. So you have to have this on before you put the tail pan on. And I already sandblasted it, but we gotta prep it a little more because I gotta take some seam sealer off here and I gotta put this piece on and just kind of remember how it goes. So one bad thing about doing stuff so long ago, you think you're gonna remember it, but you never do.
Now, I wanted to bolt this mechanism to this bracket that I'm welding in just to make sure it lines up where it's supposed to be on the rear tail pan, so when the trunk actually closes, it will latch. Because if it doesn't latch after it's welded in, that's going to be a big problem. I then got a torch and heated up that black leftover seam sealer and got it off by scraping it and using a wire wheel. And this is going to be a hard area to get to once it's actually welded in the car, so that's why I did it now. Now on old cars, gas is pumped from the back, so I wanted to make sure that pipe fit in and aligned because there's no going back once this is welded in. So then I got a big drill and drilled 2 holes where I'm going to plug weld it. Now this is where the original holes were when I took it off the old rear tail pan. I used a metal plate to put between the panels so I didn't drill all the way through, and I only drilled through one side. Then I grinded down the piece that I was actually welding in there so I could spray it with some weld-through primer so it's forever protected. I also put a layer of primer on the back side of that because it'll be hard to reach. Thankfully, it's weld time, so I clamped down the piece for final fitment. I made sure it was level and lined up, and then I began to weld it in. Believe me when I say this, welding is the easy part. It's all the prep that takes the time and makes this stuff annoying, but once this was finally welded in, I was excited because finally adding metal back to the car. Now, the next video for next week, I promise you is going to be exciting because we are going to make this one solid car. All that's left to do is weld it together. Everything's in place, I feel comfortable now, and the most exciting thing is going to be when this thing is finally done being welded, which a lot of it is going to be the next episode, but I'm sure there's a couple of hurdles that we have to get through. But it's little small work like this that gets me ahead. If you want to be first to watch next week's video, turn on your notifications, subscribe, and I would love if you could leave a comment. God bless you all, be good, do good, and go Bills!